Welcome to the ResearchWorks podcast, broadcasting live from the Oceania Academy of Cerebral Palsy and Other Childhood Onset Disabilities Conference 2026 in the beautiful city of Hobart, Australia. Join Dr. Dana Poole and the ResearchWorks team as we bring you an exclusive series of interviews with visionary keynote speakers and leading presenters, captured right here amid the groundbreaking discussions and innovations shaping the future of disability research and care.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to our conference series. We're here at Oceania Conference 2026 in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. And as promised, we have so many wonderful talks to bring to you, a lot more in-depth discussion about the presentations. And this one I'm really excited about because you'll recognize her voice. Welcome back to the pod, Marissa Smith from Healthy Strides.
Hi, Dana. Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Nice to be back. And now you're on the other side of the interview. Like you're not interviewing, you're being interviewed.
I know. I don't know how I feel about this, but
we actually haven't done this before, have we? This is great. So we are talking about an area that we're both super passionate about. So full disclosure, I am involved in this research as well. And we're just really excited to share this with everyone. The paper is titled Real-World Application of Evidence-Based Guidelines in Paediatric Neurodisability. It's a great title, if I do say so myself.
It's an amazing title.
It's a good title. It's all about the real-world application of all the research and science that has been published.
Mm-hmm.
So give us some background, Marissa. Why did we embark? Why did we do this in the first place? What is it all about?
Well, we know within neurodisability, heterogeneity is a common theme. There's so much variation in terms of diagnosis, functional levels, comorbidities, that it's really hard to say that one, therapy plan for one child works for another child. We know now, due to some great randomised control trials and systematic reviews and clinical guidelines, the types of interventions we should be using as therapists. We know what's green light, what is active, self-initiated, motor learning principles. We've got the tools. But the question remains for families and I guess for those that are providing funding and resources, how much therapy does a child need to achieve their goal?
Yeah.
And this is what this study was all about.
That's so good. And it's such an important point that you brought up there as well. We do have great RCTs. We've got great clinical practice guidelines, and there's consistency with regards to the principles that we know have the best chance of working. So we have effectiveness, but what does that actually look like when you're putting it into a setting that it's not a research study where everything's controlled and you're comparing one to the other? Because real world, real life is probably a lot messier than what's often in a research study.
Yeah. So what we've done is we wanted to, at Healthy Strides Foundation, where the data was collected from informed consent from participants, we provide intensive therapy programs using the green light interventions for children with a range of neurodisabilities.
Yes.
And so we collected the data from their admissions and majority of these children attend for 3-hour sessions a week for 6 weeks.
Yeah, great.
So what we really wanted to know is we could only report on what we provide and what we provide is evidence-based interventions with a dosage like I explained. Sometimes there's some slight changes, but that is generally our rationale for dosage. And then we wanted to be able to, using all that data and looking at specific, I guess, diagnosis, different functional levels, different communication levels. What was the average? How many sessions did it take for a child to achieve their goals? So in a community-based setting.
Yeah. Why is that important? Why do we need to know how many sessions or hours does it take to achieve a goal?
I think for years, therapy is done in a way it's been done because it's always been done before, whether it's weekly sessions or fortnightly sessions or monthly sessions. But I think we need to move to, there's sometimes a rationale for that, and 100% agree with that at times. But I think as therapists, we need to look individually at the child and what goal they have. And at times, distributed practice or more intensive intervention is warranted to be able to allow that skill acquisition. And then actually in a period after, they might not need almost any therapy input.
Yeah, that's right.
So the reason, I guess our rationale behind it was to allow us to think outside the box and see what happens when we are providing these programs this way. How many sessions is it of when this change starts to occur? When do the children start to achieve their goals?
Yeah.
It could potentially change a lot of things in terms of how therapy is provided for children.
Yeah, that's right. There's only so many resources, aren't there? There's finite resources. And when we talk about resources, as we've spoken about with so many people in this podcast already, it's not just money, it's time. And time means, when we think about the F words, becomes a really critical factor because there's so much to balance out. So we don't want to be doing too little to achieve a goal, but we also don't want to be doing too much where we're taking away from all those really other valuable things, right?
We want to be really targeted with our intervention as well. And you don't want a child to have a goal that gets so drawn out over a year or two that the parent either loses their, I guess, energy to put into that goal too, and they start to lose hope for that. And then the child might find frustration. It's based on what the families want. It's based on their goals. All the goals when they come for these programs, we know the gold standard is the family to create the goals.
Yes.
As therapists, we can help them and collaborate with them as needed.
Yes.
And you want them to have hope and, I guess, energy to drive towards that goal. And sometimes letting it drag on over a longer period, over a year or 6 months, sometimes it's warranted for certain goals, but sometimes it's not. We need this intensive practice or distributed practice to see, okay, when do they actually achieve their goal? Because then, do you know what? They can keep consolidating it at home or school without additional therapy.
And that's beautiful. And that's been such a consistent consumer question. I think we face that a lot where people just want to know, how long will it take? How long will it take for my child to achieve this goal? And we can't really answer that, can we? Because each child is so different. So what do we actually do? So let's get into the nitty-gritty about this actual cohort that you looked into. Tell us a little bit about them.
So there were children that attended programs at Healthy Strides Foundation over the last 4 years. So we had 170 children who provided informed consent, average age of around 7 years, with the primary diagnosis being cerebral palsy, but also having a large percentage with rare and non-progressive conditions.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And then what we basically did with this data, we used 2 different types of analysis to look at A, did the child achieve their goal?
Yes.
And B, how long did it take them to achieve their goal?
Yeah, great. So the statistical analysis is always quite complicated with this. And in terms of the data that was collected, obviously, over that period of time, you've got goals that were set. That was the main outcome that you're looking at, wasn't it?
Yes, we were looking at goals. So the goal set by the family. At times, we break the goal down to be...
So you do the COPM first.
Yep. And then we would use goal attainment scaling and at times multiple GAS or goal attainment scaling.
Yes.
Because you want to break maybe the overall goal into maybe more part task practice.
Yeah.
So you're really specific then with your therapy input in terms of your incremental challenge and progression of the goal to be able to achieve. Especially sometimes goals are so overarching and so big, you need to be like, okay, where are we starting?
That's right. Yeah.
Where are we going to get to?
And determining that early ahead of the piece is important because then you're really targeted and we all love a good GAS actually. So, in terms of the increments and breaking it down, there's a lot of analysis that's involved to be able to get to that point.
And that's the most exciting part as a therapist, other than getting to work with these amazing children and families, is when you get to use your problem solving and decision making and, we have all this clinical reasoning to be like, this is their goal. What do they need to do to get there?
Yep.
What do we need to break it down? How are we going to do that over these sessions and how many sessions over what time?
Brilliant.
And so then often what we would do is break it into multiple GAS.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get into some of the results.
Great.
So when it comes to goal achievement and how long it takes, what did that look like from your data?
So we found a high rate of goal attainment was observed across the 445 therapy programs.
Right. So kids came from multiple programs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Some of the children came from multiple programs over the 4-year period. So we found that 74% of programs achieved their goal with a median of 11 sessions.
Right.
So 11 sessions was typically the trigger, the start of success for their goal.
That's really fascinating. In fact, there's a lot of previous articles. I know Michelle Jackman did one mostly on upper limb and looking at COPM, and that was around the same kind of figures and numbers that were starting to come up, which is really interesting. So that's a good figure. What were some of the other influencing factors that that influenced the achievement of goals?
Session intensity was definitely a big factor.
Good to know.
There was a high dose relationship there. So for children that attended more than 16 sessions compared to a child that attended less than 10, the ones that attended more than 16 were nearly 4 times more likely to achieve their goals with a higher odds ratio.
And that's really interesting too, isn't it? Because you don't want to do too little. Because if you do too little, when you think about it, if it's still less than 10, say you came for 9 sessions, that's still 9 sessions of investment, but not likely to achieve your goal. So getting the right intensity actually is important, isn't it? Getting enough.
Absolutely, particularly if it means whether you're going to achieve that goal or not.
Yeah.
And then it allows for that child to generalise the goal once the therapy intervention has finished. So I think that's a really big thing to draw from this is that more than 16 or more sessions had a much stronger increase in the likelihood of the child achieving their goal.
Interesting. Any other factors?
We also found that when children had more than 3 goals set, and by this I mean they might have had one overarching goal, but it was broken into using goal attainment scaling more than 3. So that really structured incremental challenge and I guess goal progression, that they again were more likely to achieve their goal with a higher odds ratio. They were nearly 4 times more likely than those with less than 3 goals.
And I feel like that would be something that people go, oh, more than 3 goals sounds like there's, wouldn't that dilute the program?
Related. The goals are often related. And whenever we do programs at Healthy Strides, we are, we want to be succinct. We don't want to dilute dosage.
Yes.
So when I say more than 3, there are 3 related goals.
Yeah, sure.
But they're just separated using goal attainment scaling to allow for that, I guess, progression and increased challenge.
And that makes sense. Like when you think about if the goal is to walk more efficiently and effectively in their walk-in frame, it might be, one of the goals might be, walking within a therapy clinic and being able to take steps. The second might be steering, and the third one might be for them to transfer in and out of it or use it in a different setting. So they're all related to the overarching goal of walking.
Absolutely, because all of that will then mean they can use it more freely at school or home. Yep.
Great clarification. Anything else?
We also found that children with a vision impairment achieve their goals faster. Now this...
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it highlights, it could be because of the goals that this cohort sets, but it highlights the importance of us, noting that they have a vision impairment, something we always screen for at every first assessment or session.
Sure.
And then it's something we take into account, in terms of that play and engagement in a session. So it's something that's a really big part of how the therapy is delivered. So it was interesting that these children did achieve their goals faster. And I think that's hopefully because we're doing things, making the environment rich for them, noting that they have that vision impairment.
And scaffolding it for them and still making it really meaningful. And that just shows the value of, again, that problem solving that you were talking about and thinking as therapists what we can do. Okay. Was there anything else that sort of influenced whether or, how quickly goals were achieved?
Yeah. So what did affect speed? I was about to go back on my word. We did find that communication function, so CFCS level, did impact on the speed and the time it takes for a child to achieve their goal.
Okay.
So children with a CFCS of 5 took more time to achieve their goal than someone, for example, of CFCS 1.
Right. Okay. And you had some in your presentation, some lovely examples of how that ranged across different conditions. Do you mind just talking us through that more individual profile?
Absolutely.
That's a great example. I like how that was put out.
So we were able to tailor our dosage to individual profiles. So I can go through those profiles now to give you a bit of a difference. So this illustrates the difference between the CFCS levels.
Okay. Yeah.
So and the time it takes to achieve a goal. So for example, if a child has cerebral palsy and has a CFCS, so communication function classification system, level 1, they took a medium of 11 sessions to achieve their goals.
Right. Okay.
If we move to a child with the same diagnosis of cerebral palsy, but a CFCS level 5, they took a medium of 16 sessions to achieve their goals. So obviously they needed more time.
Yeah. Yep.
With the same diagnosis.
Sure.
We then move on to someone with a rare non-progressive condition, but the same CFCS level, so level 5, and they just took 1 session more, 17 sessions. I do want to highlight that there is a range as well. So the range, for example, for that, for someone with cerebral palsy, CFCS level 5, whilst on average it was 16 sessions, there was a range of 13 to 18 sessions.
Sure. So the range is still quite big, and you've looked at these 2 factors. So does that mean that we can use this now as a guide? Where to from here? What does this actually mean from the work you guys are doing?
So I think it firstly highlights that children with, more communication needs with a higher CFCS level in terms of like the level 4 or 5 do take longer to respond. I think we can see that from the data we've produced. But what it also it drives us that there's more, we can continue to build on this with more data that we have. And so this is leading us, I guess I can go into what we're doing now. We've got this proof of concept. We're creating a learning healthcare system using live machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
We continue to input this data from children attending their programs.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do we include, diagnosis and communication level and functional mobility level using GMFCS, but we also include comorbidities, things like vision impairment, hypertonia, epilepsy, more variables.
Sure.
So then we can put all of these specifics in and it will give us a really specific dosage. It takes out that really generic estimation and gives us a specific dosage for that presentation of how many sessions
that's brilliant
would be needed to achieve a goal.
I guess it just takes the guesswork out of all of it.
It's the best way we can do apart from guesswork. I can't think of any better way of looking at data when evidence-based techniques are being applied than from a learning healthcare system, which gets more and more data over time.
And I love how this has evolved. We started very much at the beginning of collecting this data, which we do as part of clinical practice, gold standard, learning from that data. But to be more precise, we can input more of it into, big data. We know that the power of what we can do from that now. So the learning healthcare system would be something really worthwhile to look out for and talk about. So final messages from you, Marissa. Are there any key takeaways that you want for clinicians as they're waiting for this learning healthcare system? What can they do right now?
Absolutely. I think we know dosage matters and we know that children classified with GMFCS, 5 and CFCS 5, so those children that are more severely affected, they need more time to achieve their goals. So as community therapists, I think it challenges us to think about the dosage. At Healthy Strides, obviously we have set dosage for different programs, but all of this, again, is based on more and more data that we build and from research that's been provided.
Consumers' input.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big thing to highlight actually, Dana, is like you said, consumer input. And there was a lot of consumer input before we started the dosage with Healthy Strides in terms of, I know initially when we started Kindy Moves, I don't want to jump into other areas and other topics that are going to be discussed, but people found that 12 sessions wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's right.
And 18 was achievable from a number of families in terms of balancing with other needs. So basically it's just getting them to think about dosage, getting them to think about the goal, think about the children's functional and classification level and how that might be impacted in their therapy provision.
Great.
What we're driving for here is also equity across funding provision.
Yes.
In Australia, we're fortunate to have the NDIS. I know there's different funding bodies or access to different funding in other areas of the world. But for here, we want children with, the higher physical needs and communication needs to make sure they have access to the right amount of funding because we know it takes them longer to achieve their goals.
And it's still worthwhile because they're very important goals to the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. So they're the big things I would take from this.
Yeah, sure.
It's exciting because, we can't change the clinical complexity of a child, but we can use this data that we have to give the best recommendations possible.
That's right.
To advocate.
Yes.
So that therapy provision and funding provision is fair and equitable across the board.
Yeah, and I think the underpinning part for that's worthwhile highlighting is that we are implementing evidence-based practice guidelines. Like we are... there's always this debate about, but my clinical skills outweigh that. Actually, they come hand in hand, but we have to be guided by the science. And when you put science into real life, you do get to see these changes. But it is possible to implement this across the GMFCS levels, and you can see goal achievement. It might take a bit longer for someone of CFCS level 5 or GMFCS level 5, but these key principles of what we know from the evidence do work. You've got to make sure you implement them and do them with enough dosage.
Absolutely. And I think, in terms of the number of programs that we provide at Healthy Strides for children that are GMFCS 4s and 5s and getting them up on their feet and, seeing that sometimes they need maybe that little bit longer to respond. That is all what this data is showing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, thank you very much, Marissa. It was lovely to have you on the microphone and for me to interview you about a paper.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoy the rest of the conference. And for everyone who's listening, hope you enjoy that as well. Stay tuned for so many more episodes. Bye.
Bye.